freedom is not free. We have to work for it. We have to sweat for it. Some of us have to bleed, some die for it. But if you look up north or any other country and look at Vietnam today, you'll understand the meaning of freedom.
The Republic of Korea, one of the fastest growing nations in the world, a land bouncing back from the ravages of war that ended in an armistice 32 years ago. Korea, a people gearing up to meet the challenges of the Asian Games, the '88 Summer Olympics, and international society. One of America's staunchest allies, Korea is a nation living with the philosophy that a strong defense is the best deterrent against violence. Each year, the peninsula plays host to joint and combined military training maneuvers between Republic of Korea and U.S. forces. Over the past 2 months, the Korean landscape has been transformed into a massive training ground as the armed forces of two nations mold into a cohesive unit during what has become the largest military training operation conducted in the free world today. Team Spirit 85.
Hold it, hold it. Hold it, baby. Hold it. Hold it. There you go, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Give me some light.
Good evening. I'm Specialist George McNamara, your host for Korea Newsline's Look Back at Team Spirit 85. Over the past 2 months, our reporters have crisscrossed the Republic to cover the action from start to finish, logging some 14,000 miles in the process. And during the next 55 minutes, we're going to put a rucksack on your back and take you to the front lines. The exercise officially began February 1st, incremental action that would ultimately bring 38,000 American service members from all branches of the armed forces to the Republic, and with them tons of cargo necessary to conduct extensive field maneuvers. In the air, there were to be dozens of fighter and cargo aircraft winging their way to Korea. In all, more than 200,000 Korean and American military personnel saw action, much of it together, side by side. To get a true picture of Team Spirit, though, and its importance, we have to take a moment to look back, to remember the ROK and American soldiers who gave their lives defending this peninsula. Reflect upon the men of E Company, the 27th Regimental Combat Team, who under the command of then Captain Lewis Millett fought gallantly against the Chinese at Osan with only bayonets. Remember the Masan breakout, an assault by Allied forces that saved the city of Pusan and began the push that allowed the United Nations to retake control of the peninsula. And never forget the intensity of Cheopyeong-ni.
Recalling the events of the battle at Cheopyeong-ni 34 years ago today instills the desire and struggle for peace and freedom in the Republic of Korea. Colonel Paul Freeman led the 23rd Regimental Combat Team, aided by a French rifle battalion, in holding off 3 days of attacks by 5 Chinese Communist divisions. Now retired General Freeman, himself wounded in the fighting, was the keynote speaker at the wreath-laying ceremony. According to Freeman, his men held the key to success.
They had determination, and teamwork was what paid off.
To Guy Raines, a medic during that fierce battle, the ceremony was as much a tribute to the 23rd's leader as the unit itself. The Korea Bowl, fashioned from more than 5,000 sterling silver combat infantrymen's badges earned by the 23rd RCT, was the focal point of toasts to the participating nations and the fallen soldiers. One cup was reserved for the honored dead. Deep wounds suffered at the Battle of Cheopyeong-ni have since healed. The land is again fertile, and the people live freely. But this marker serves as a symbol of the men of the 23rd Infantry and their fight for peace. Jay Field, AFKN News at Cheopyeong-ni.
The war has never officially ended. An armistice signed July 27th, 1953 stopped the guns in Korea. Guns silent now for 3 decades, an uneasy truce. Incidents along the demilitarized zone and the buildup of North Korea's military forces have shown a clear need for a strong readiness on the part of the Republic, thus team spirit. Team spirit allows the combined forces of our two countries to train together, exercising capabilities for deployment of large numbers of troops, aircraft, and equipment. It underscores the interoperability between ROK and U.S. forces. While in-country participants began gearing up for Team Spirit months ago, the visiting units began their involvement in February. First the advance parties and aircraft and helicopters and tanks, then the plane loads of troops, combat troops of the task forces Lancer and Thunder, and elements of the 25th Infantry Division made the trek in February with arrivals at Osan Air Base. Ultimately, there were to be more than 5,000 Tropic Lightning soldiers in the Republic, all led by their commander, Major General Claude Kicklighter. And while the soldiers were arriving and heading for meticulously constructed tent cities, equipment was arriving at Pusan with the Military Sealift Command. The USNS Bellatrix, one of the Navy's fastest and largest cargo ships, spearheaded the effort, transporting over 2,500 pieces of cargo belonging to the 25th ID from Hawaii to Pusan. The 2 February port calls marked the first time the Bellatrix had sailed under military command. Once in port, Army Military Traffic Management Command personnel sorted the endless stream of equipment being offloaded, dispatching it by rails to staging sites near the ground exercise area. Meanwhile, at Pohang, the Trans-Korea pipeline was pumping hundreds of gallons of Team Spirit fuels north toward the exercise sites. 19th Support Command's 20th Quartermaster Company worked overtime, getting its support units squared away. In the weeks before the out-of-country forces were even thinking of packing duffel bags, tent cities were being laid out and constructed in Army and Air Force field locations to include Kimhae and Sachon in the south and Osan Air Base just south of Seoul. In the Army-controlled areas, the Korean Service Corps, the so-called A-frame Army, was showing its colors. Sites near Uijeonbu, Wonju, Chuncheon, and Pyeongtaek sprouted many villages of olive drab general-purpose tents, more than 1,000 in all, complete with electricity and heat. Signal units established lines of communication to include installation of hundreds of telephone and telex lines, while area facility engineer type strung electrical power lines, created sandbag and plywood sidewalks, and set safety standards. Since the inception of Team Spirit 10 years ago, one of the exercise's primary functions has been turning ROK and U.S. forces into one cohesive element. U.S. aircraft worked out of and alongside ROK Air Force personnel and bases, such as at Kimhae, Suwon, and Daegu. In the field, U.S. military commanders shifted control of their divisions to their ROK superiors. 2nd, 7th, and 25th Divisions all took their turn in ceremonial field activities. One such move took place northeast of Wonju, with Major General Claude Kicklighter passing control of his 25th Division to a ROK Corps commander, Lieutenant General Chang Ki-oh.
There's no doubt in our mind either that Team Spirit is going to be a very successful exercise. We know that this division will be much more combat ready when we complete this exercise. But we also know that Team Spirit says to the world that our two great nations are united to protect freedom and peace in the world. We want you to know that the 25th Division is extremely proud to be part of the 2nd Republic of Korea Corps. Not only for Team Spirit, but we'd be proud to be part of this Corps at any time.
Long before the official start of the employment phase began, visiting troops tackled some training not available at their home stations. 2nd Infantry Division Cavalry, for example, trains year-round in the northern part of the Republic. For the Hawaii-based 25th ID, it was quite different than their normal hunting ground. Specialist Jim Heller found out when he rode north and got a taste of fire from the sky.
It was a live fire workout for the Tropic Lightning's eyes and ears. Recently, Sea Troop from the 25th Infantry Division's 3-quarter Cavalry took advantage of being in Korea for Team Spirit to get some good training. Sea Troop's Cobra and Scout helicopters got to practice some live fire teamwork. The exercise started here, where the Cobras were loaded with live ammunition. From here, they headed north to Rodriguez Range, where they took turns blasting the hillside with a variety of weapons. The 3/4 Cav is based in Hawaii and is composed of 26 helicopters and a complement of tanks and armored personnel carriers. What does a cavalry unit do? Sea Troop Commander Major Michael Boyce says the cavalry no longer rides to anyone's rescue. It leads the way.
We're the eyes and ears of the division. We're supposed to be out front, locate the enemy, keep in contact with him, and direct him to where we want him to for the division commander.
About 65 soldiers participated in the live fire exercise at Rodriguez Range, and Major Boyce says the drill gave Sea Troop the chance to practice their mission in a realistic environment.
Well, the terrain is a lot different, and also there's the threat of a real enemy over here, and I think that adds some excitement and realism to the training we're doing, and we've all found it very beneficial.
In addition to the more realistic environment, Major Boyce says the training facilities in Korea are better than the ones in Hawaii. And he says Sea Troop and the rest of the 3/4 Cav are looking forward to Team Spirit because he says it will pay dividends on the 3/4 Cav's investment of hard work and good training.
While the cavalry was tearing up the skies, other 25th Division units of the 1st of the 19th Infantry were meeting the challenges of a ROK Ranger mountaineering course. With terrain significantly different than Hawaii's, Korea's landscape set up some heavy-duty obstacles. And during this training week, still other ROK steady units were humping it across the countryside on a battle march and shoot. Army Sergeant Jay Field bought into the action with a ticket on the Boot Leather Express.
They march mile upon endless mile through muck and mire when others not so bold would expire. They're the infantry, and they've got what it takes.
Willpower, I guess. Motivation, we love it. We got to be number one. That's what it takes. Got to have a lot of guts. A lot of guts. We in the infantry, that's our job.
Infantrymen of the 1st Battalion, 19th Infantry, 25th Infantry Division were doing a battle march and shoot exercise as part of their team spirit training. It was an opportunity for the infantry platoons to practice moving to an objective and then directing fire upon it. By squad, they engaged targets in different zones and allowed the team leaders to control the fire. And since the terrain and climate is so different than their normal stomping ground in Hawaii, First Sergeant Willie Owens says it brought added training benefits.
In a sense, it teaches the soldiers to be flexible. Coming out of a warm climate like Hawaii to cold climate like Korea is a big change to them, and it teaches them to be able to fight and move under any type conditions. By having an opportunity to do this will teach the soldiers and the leaders a lot of the safety aspects that are going to be required in a combat type environment. And once this happens, then it'll be like second nature to them. They won't have any problems keeping safety in mind while they're moving and closing with the enemy at the same time.
The men of the ROK Steady Battalion will have many more chances to do this type of training before Team Spirit 85 becomes history. And it's easy to tell why.
It's all part of the job.
Army Sergeant Jay Field, AFKN News, north of Chuncheon.
Training is training, no matter what the forum setup is. One advantage of live fire exercises, though, is to evaluate the training and effectiveness of each soldier. Called RTEPs, these Army Readiness Training and Evaluation Programs give a realistic view of the frontline mission, as scouts of the 3/4 Cavalry found out while maneuvering their tanks and armored personnel carriers across the Korean countryside. To the south, the Navy and Air Force were pooling their resources for some similarly valuable training called MINEX, the defensive training centered around Yosu Harbor, as Specialist Barry Bashaw reports.
The Air Force Strategic Air Command, better known as SAC, and the U.S. Marine Corps joined forces and played an active role in Team Spirit 85 when they combined with the Republic of Korea Navy at Yosu Harbor for mining operations. 7 B-52Gs of the 60th Bombardment Squadron, 43rd Strategic Wing, Anderson Air Force Base, Guam, along with Marine Corps A-6s from Marine Aircraft Group 90, the air combat element of the 9th Marine Amphibious Brigade, dropped a total of 35 practice mines in the harbor as part of a defensive exercise. The mines, dropped in Yosu Harbor some 250 miles southeast of Seoul, remained floating in place until picked up by the Republic of Korea Navy, affording them the opportunity to test their minesweeping capabilities. Once removed, the U.S. Navy Explosive Ordnance Disposal Team from Subic Bay, the Philippines, went to work on their part of the exercise, that of disarming all the mines. Team Spirit signifies the joint Republic of Korea, United States' ability to successfully work together in a bilingual combined operational mode. For Team Spirit 85, Army Specialist Barry Bashaw.
While all this training was going on, in-country units weren't sitting idly by. There were supplies to move, equipment to pre-position, railhead operations to supervise, fuel to pump, and an airstrip to build. Once just a barren flatland, the area north of the small city of Yeoju served as the tabletop for the assembly of a giant jigsaw puzzle. The pieces were multi-service. First, the Army's 44th Engineer Battalion got to put their huge Tonkas to work, bulldozing hundreds of cubic yards of dirt out of the way for what ultimately would be an airfield. Working side by side with Korean Service Corps workers, engineers then pieced together more than 36,000 aluminum panels to create what they affectionately called Broken Heart International. As they finished, 1st Signal Brigade slid into place to establish radar and air traffic control functions at the airfield, and Air Force elements of the Mobile Aerial Port Squadron and the ALSI, or Airlift Control Element, set up housekeeping to direct traffic from above. The name changed, and Yeoju Assault Strip was in business. The 7th Infantry Division from Fort Ord, California, came to Korea ready to test a new tactical approach. Specialist Christopher Wheelock and Air Force Sergeant Ron Tull linked up with a light infantry task force as it arrived.
The touchdown of C-5As and C-141s at Osan Air Base marked the final leg of a tiresome journey which began at Travis Air Force Base. But before the last leg started, troops from the 2nd Brigade of the 7th Infantry Division had to transfer to smaller transport planes. After a brief flight, Task Force 7 arrived at Yeoju Assault Strip in full deployment configuration. The results of how well they function in this exercise will be carefully studied as the concept of the Army's new light infantry divisions is put to the test. The troops were tired after the long flight, but their mission was far from over. In fact, it had just begun.
C-130 transport planes are replacing commercial 747s, and the Boot Leather Express is replacing trucks and other convoys previously used to transport the 7th Division soldiers to their next destination, which is the exercise area for Team Spirit 85. Specialist Christopher Wheelock, AFKN News, Yeoju Assault Strip.
A 7-kilometer hike awaited the soldiers of Alpha Company, 3rd Battalion, 32nd Infantry. The soldiers walked tactically, their rucksacks weighing anywhere from 60 to 100 pounds.